Well, Rob, here we are, another Glory Days review, and it's your turn in the hot seat today, and I'm quite excited about this. I've got to admit, because we're talking about UK champs, and I've got to admit, UK champs is it's not something that I've even ever felt I've come close to winning. I have had a couple of top tens when I did it, but nothing amazing. But you had a really consistent run, accumulating with an amazing win in 2014. So I want to hear about it. I want to have a look. Quick, give me a little history. Start with a little history about UK champs for me, because I know at the time there was a little rankings thing brought up, and you were number one in the rankings.
Well, I've got to talk to you about the rankings because I love a ranking system. But I'm going to talk to you right at the start. Go back right at the start of when I started fishing UK champs. And again, good friend of mine, Sean Huggins, he actually won the UK champs, and he won it.
Did he win the first one that Tommy?
No, he didn't. He didn't. He won the second or third one because the first one that Tommy started running, Sean was fishing. And I remember ringing up, and I think that either the last round or the second to last round, I was struggling for a match on a Wednesday. Obviously, I'm really young. I don't know what the crack is. And Sean said, I'll ring Tommy up, see if there's any space on UK champs. And I thought I could ring Tommy up and just fill in for the last, fill it. Or is anyone not turning up? Or is anyone calling in sick? I'll fill in on the last couple. Just because I wanted a Wednesday match fishing, because no, pal, it don't work like that. But what I'll do is, if you're interested, I'll put you on a waiting list for next year. And like a reserve list. Anyway, managed to get in, fish it, and Sean actually won that UK champs. Like really consistent all the way through. Like almost Sean to me was like this commercial fishery hero, but I suppose to the wider world, because he'd never done any magazine articles or anything, he was just this guy who was like pretty unheard of, you know.
And all of a sudden, he was UK champion.
He was UK champion, and I just remember him winning it. It was obviously we used to travel everywhere together, so I thought it was fantastic. And then fast forward a few years, I was getting more and more sort of consistent in the UK champs. So again, like yourself, a couple of top tens. I think I'd been like second or third a couple of times, third at least once. And then there was a ranking system brought out, and Grant was top of the ranking system. I think he was top of it for 2 years, and it was a combination of where you'd finished the year.
Yeah,
like the last three.
This ranking system didn't last long, did it? It was
it didn't. It was
3 years.
Yeah, it was where you'd finished for the last 3 years in the UK champs. So obviously, if you fished it 3 years previous, you've got a head start on anyone that hasn't fished it.
Yeah, good job. Yeah.
And Grant was like number one, and he was number one for like 2 years because Grant obviously I think he won it, and I think he was like really he definitely won.
Yeah, he was consistent, very consistent.
He definitely won it because remember there was a BMW tie-in at the time because he got some sort of BMW tie-in. So he definitely won it, and he was top two, I think. He was number one for like 3 years, and then I was looking at his ranking system after I won it. I actually said to Rob Hughes, I said, "You're going to redo these rankings because I think I might have just overtook him now." And he said, "Nah, it's gone." So no, there was no. Obviously, I was not at the top, but
so you were never officially number one on the rankings.
No, because the rankings got
2 years.
The rankings got taken away, so there was no ranking system.
I remember it only lasted, it only lasted a couple of years. I do remember thinking that,
there were fans. Obviously, UK champs are still going now, but for me, I've not fished one for 2 years. Not fished 2-3 years really since our feeder fishing really took off. Our international stuff took off. So for me, there were like brilliant matches. There was £1,000 to win on the actual match. There was 4 matches throughout the year, and then it was based on section points to who was the actual UK champ at the end of the year.
Can I just tell you what stood out for me with the UK champs, Rob? Right, because a lot of people in fishing always say things like, "Oh, the beauty of fishing is you can beat a world champion," or this match is so and so. What I loved about the UK champs at that time in particular, right, and we're talking like late 2000s going into 2010 and those sort of years, right? It was, for me, it was elite, right? When Tommy set it up, the entry money was huge, right? It was section points. None of this like, you drop your worst result. It was like, 4 matches all over the country. You're going to have to drive 1 million miles, right? You're going to be fishing against all commercial anglers all over the country.
Listen, proper anglers. You know,
everybody,
the cream of commercial fishery anglers.
At this point, it was literally, if you weren't doing it, why weren't you doing it, right? And it wasn't hidden. You know, it was like 250 quid to enter, which now is still a lot of money. Well, imagine it going back like 15 years. But I remember when Tommy announced it, and I used to, at the time, I was like 20 and just thought to myself, I can't afford to enter that. And that's kind of what he wanted to do, this elite.
He did. He wanted to make it so you sat there and you questioned your ability and you thought, can I back myself to the tune of 250 quid against that company?
Hang on, plus all your entry fees per match, 50 quid a match, right? So I personally love the fact that in match fishing we've got lower entry competitions, we've got mixed competition. I love that, but I love the fact that at that time the UK champs was considered elite, and that is why I think that's really important.
And also the thing that I loved is it wasn't based on 1 or 2 matches, it was based on a series of matches. So
4 matches,
consistency comes into play. And I just thought, I love that sort of thing. And you know, of festivals, Drennan Knockout Cup, that sort of thing, where different venues, consistency. You might have to win the match every time. It's, you know, you can't win the match.
You can't win the match every time, Rob. It's impossible.
If you need a second or a third in your section, that's what you've got to get. You know,
exactly.
and that's what I loved about it. So we've sort of building up. I've had a couple of good results, and I always look forward to UK champs. Again, first round, there was always like a nice, you know, there was a buzz about it. There was a real buzz because you'd look around, as you say, the anglers that you're fishing against, you think, I hope we don't draw next to him, or he's difficult to beat.
Mentioned your sections were so tough, weren't they?
Yeah, and I mentioned in my Maven match this glory days about Andy Powers, and at this time he's always been like a bit of a thorn in my side. Andy Powers has, and I actually drew this next to him, but a million miles away from him in the first round of this particular year, 2014. I drew on Beaches Lake at Lindholme. But he was miles round to my left, and I actually looked at his peg and thought he could win this section easy. If the fish are down this end, he's going to win the section easy. As it was, he caught next to nothing because obviously the fish were just
one of those pegs where they're
one of those pegs. One of those days. But I won the section and I won the lake.
What's this round? So this is round one, 2014 UK champs.
Lindholme Lake. So Beaches Lake, I'd never fished it before. Spoke to a few people about it. And at the time, they were told me margins. The fish will be in your margins from like word go. The thing you've got to remember about UK champs.
UK champs were like 1 till 6 or something.
Afternoon matches. They're afternoon matches. So there were always like brilliant matches. But I've just done a normal thing. I've got to a peg. You might know the peg.
You remember your peg?
I can't remember my peg, but at the time it was a good peg. Quite snaggy. So it's got all those pencil reeds. I've not been on beaches recently, but I don't know if those pencil reeds are still there.
Yeah, there is.
But there was sort of the remnants of all these pencil reeds sticking up in my edges. But you could sort of find a gap, and I had a swim left and right, and then like a swim in front of me, and like a mugging rig as well, just to have a go mugging. And my start for the day. I'll tell you what, I'm going to try and think of the peg number. You drive down. I was on the right-hand bank, so the bank nearest the calf.
I've got you.
And like the narrow end, opposite the point.
Yeah. So you were right. So you were opposite. Were you? All right. Okay. And were you? So
do you know the peg numbers?
Rob, you weren't as far as the big bay then, were
you?
No.
I was at the narrow end. The point was slightly at like 1 o'clock to me.
You'd have been about peg 32, I reckon.
I want to say 32. I want to say 31, 32. So start for the day there was no fish cruising around at the time. I was like, I love my mugging. So I'd get my mugging rig out, slapped it on a couple of fish. Happy days. You know, you're off to a brilliant start doing that. And then I settled in, feeding a bit of bait out at sort of 40.5, 60 meters, caught a few fish shallow. But all the time, I fed a bit of bait in my right-hand margin, which turned out to be my best margin, to be honest. Almost straight away, when you feed this bait, this fish like tails up. I couldn't believe it.
They live
tails
there. They live in those stick-ups.
The stick-ups were doing this. Now, I remember at the time, obviously I was at Shimano at the time, and I'd got one of their Beastmaster poles. I threaded it up with like that much, like really thick elastic, like red hydro through it, like ridiculous. And I thought, well, that's me pole for down there. Like proper heavy gear as well, like really robust floats, big hooks. And I thought I'll fish maggots because you can put like 10 on a big hook and you can cover the hook. I'll fish maggots and feed a bit of ground bait. So I'm feeding some maggots, feeding some ground bait in the edge. And I've started sacking up in the edge, absolutely sacking up. The crack was, and I remember what the crack was on the day, was to cut out the ground bait and just cut it to like neat maggots because they were just going mad on the ground bait. They were going crazy on this ground bait. And
that's at a time when, to be fair, ground bait was insane for bringing fish in, wasn't it?
It was brilliant, amazing. But in the end, I was feeding way too much of it. So it was a case of like, we just cutting out the ground bait. Maybe every now and again, I'd feed a little bit. Obviously, potting it in. I'm only fishing like 4 meters down the bank, but I wanted to be tight, create that little parcel of bait, and you pot it in down the bank, you know, just like 50 maggots and a little pinch of ground bait, because there was fish there already. Lower your 10 maggots in, clunk, and obviously this much elastic comes out. Your pole bends around like that, you drag them out, net the fish.
Yeah,
2 to 4, 2 to 4 pounders, but like then fish that like in the reeds. The crack was, again, with those pencil reeds, for anyone that's ever faced with that sort of thing, is they stick up. So you don't want to pull your fish sideways. You need to sort of lift them, get them on the pole high, get them on the top, and then you can pull them out. So it was a brilliant day. Obviously, lost loads of gear. You just have, you know, you're going to lose loads of gear when it's like that. So
what did we weigh?
I tell you what, I'm struggling with my weight for that. But I had a massive weight. I remember that day, the whole of the complex fished its head off. Adam Wakely won the match on Bonsai, and there was like something like 10, 150 pound weights on Bonsai. I had 150 pound because I thought, I might frame it. And then I've walked round. Chatted to Steve. Steve was weighing in. Steve Ringer was weighing in. And he goes, there's been lots of massive weights. He had 120, 130 pounds, and he was like 4th in his section or something daft like that. Yeah. Unfortunately, it was just as you come into like the social media days. So obviously, I've not took any pictures of my fish, but fortunately, Steve, I just said, Steve, give us a few of your fish, and I took a picture of like Steve's fish just for like me. I remember taking a picture of Steve's fish because I didn't think that wasn't in my head then. Back then, it wasn't as you didn't take a picture of your fish.
So we started with a win.
Started with a win. And then this shows sort of like the diversity of UK champs, and logistically what it's all about is that's Lindholme, which is like Doncaster, north of England. The second match is Viaduct Fishery. So what's the difference between those two in mileage?
Yeah,
it's ridiculous.
Ridiculous.
Yeah, 300 mile.
I was going to say at least 250, at least.
So Viaduct Fishery, you're talking big fish, proper carp, no F1s in Viaduct. You know, there's the scary Kerry Lake, which I was on the year before, which was just unbelievable. But I've drew Campbell Lake. And again, I'm going to...
Isn't that, as you go in, that's like the lake on the left-hand side?
Far left-hand side.
It's a prolific lake, I would say.
It's the most. It's the one you're going to get the most bites on. The fish aren't massive like in Kerry Lake.
Yeah.
But you're going to catch like the 4, 5, 6 pounders. That's the sort of size. Whereas in Kerry Lake, they're all...
I've actually commentated on the UK Champs of Viaduct twice. And both times I've watched Campbell and just been like, what is going on here?
Yeah, you know? amazing lake. So I've drew on I'm facing the calf, I'm facing Kerry Lake, but my back is like away from the complex. I've drawn that back bank of Kerry.
Yeah, you're on the far side of that Campbell.
Yeah. And there's a spit that comes out, isn't there? On the middle of that Campbell, there's a spit that like a groin that sort of like nicks out into the middle of the lake. I'm about 3 pegs away from that to the right. And it was sort of like an end of the lake where everyone was like, this could be like a dodgy end. It's usually the far end that's pretty good.
That's right, yeah.
As it was, I caught some fish on bomb and pellet, all hard pellet work, bomb and pellet, and the odd fish on a waggler. Again, beautiful day. And the afternoon matches, the fact it's an afternoon match helps massively in the UK champs because obviously the fish start feeding. And I fished bomb and pellet. I had Mick Ball to my right on that day, I remember. It was quite a little bit of a nip and tuck day between me and Mick. It was a really interesting day. Big fish again, six pounders, 5, 6 pounders. Brilliant fishing, pulling your arm off every time you get one. And then I've settled in at like 5 meters. And Mick was fishing his margins, and he was getting like 1 fish, 2 fish, but then he'd wait ages for another bite. And he just couldn't keep a nice steady.
You loved the old fight at this time.
Loved it. Yeah, loved it. Absolutely loved it.
Thing, weren't you?
Yeah, I loved that 5 meter line. So I've dropped that 5 meter, and the difference at that 5 meter line, whereas you just weren't waiting for a bite, because you'd strike like that, clunk, you'd play your fish back, net it, and because it's all happening here, you're not spooking your fish at like 5 meters, and you can feed a bit of bait, get ready. By the time you ship out, you drop it in, clunk, you get it.
Was this hard pellets as well, Rob? Was this hard pellets?
I want to say it was meat. But I'm sure meat was allowed. I'm sure meat's still allowed there, but I'm sure meat was allowed. If meat was allowed, it was meat. But it might have been pellets. I'm sure it was meat though. Got it in my head.
I'm sure meat was allowed there.
Yeah, I'm sure it was meat. Obviously, I'm sure it was. But
5 meters and meat were synonymous with each other, weren't they?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, so like feed a bit of bait and like clunk. It was like, this is heaven. And I've got the weight. I think I've got the weight on here. Let's just see if I've got the weight.
I mean, when I commentated on that lake, like I said, both times, that sort of like 3:30, 4 o'clock onwards. Bearing in mind the match finishes at 6. I mean, I watched some people absolutely empty that short line.
Well, I had £207 on that after that day.
£200 cannot win sections on there. That's how good it is.
Yeah, it was brilliant. And I tell you who beat me. I was 4th that day in the match.
Right.
Andy Power was 3rd. Beat me out of the just every single time. Every single time, like so annoying.
Had you won your section there then?
Won the section, yes. I'd won the section, which is like,
at this point, it's perfect score.
Yeah, gold dust. Yeah, it's perfect.
So it's 2 wins, two section wins. Has anyone else got 2 section wins at this point?
Actually, Viaduct, I might have been 2nd in the section.
All right.
I'm just looking here. I'm just looking.
Have you studied this much, or for our glory days? This is a proper like glory days enhanced, isn't it?
Long time ago. No, 2nd in the section.
See, that's my point. So you've had £207.
Yeah, 2nd in the section. I'm trying to think who won the section. It might have been Andy Power. I think it was Andy Power in my section. He was. He was further up. He was like, he was further up. I remember it. He was further up past that groin.
He's 3rd in the match during.
Third in the match. He's beat me in the section. Yeah, that's how annoying this guy was at this time. Like every single time, it was like the thorn in my side. I remember I done a knockout round, thinking, "Oh, a frame today," and then he drives by. What have you had? And he's nicked me for the frame place on that as well at Lindholme. That was just every single time. So annoying. So amazing day at Viaduct. Larford is the next venue.
So you've got 3 points, Rob. At this point, I'm going to say you're probably not winning it. You're probably top 5.
Yeah. There's a lot of people on like 2 1s.
2 wins, or certainly 3 points.
Yeah, I remember Brandon Wakeling was doing well this year. I think he'd got maybe even 2 wins. I think he'd got 2 wins. Okay. He'd at least got a 1 and a 2, but like a big weight because of Lindholme. He'd had a big weight at Lindholme and at Viaduct. So you needed weight as well on your side, as you'll see later on. We're on to Larford. And do you remember at this time, again, we're talking 5 metre line, the Burbank, like pegs 12 to like 17 on Special Lake?
Yeah. I'd say if you drew anywhere from, definitely like 10, 12, like you say, up to that area. It was just epic.
Well, I was there. I'm going to say 14, that sort of area. 14.
And I'm going to say, Rob, right, it's not a banker section peg, that.
No, definitely not, no.
It's not a banker section peg. It's a nice peg to be on for your section, but there's also 4 or 5 other pegs that, because those big carp can rock up anywhere there, without a shadow of a doubt.
Yeah, remember it's an afternoon match, and these fish, you know what it's like when you've Even there was a lot of fish in Larford at the time, a lot of fish, especially that special make, a lot of fish. And an afternoon session there was fish in a lot of areas.
I fished the Drennan Knockout semi-final there. I think it was either that year that you're talking about or 2013. I can't remember which. And I ended up weighing 158, 160 pound, and with 2 hours to go, I had about 10 pound of skimmers.
Yeah,
we fished like 11 till 4.
But the fish are massive, aren't they?
Ridiculous. Last 2 hours, it was just one every single chuck in. So 1 till 6 is a different game altogether, isn't it?
We had a £60 net limit for this particular match, because obviously at Larford the rules was like £60 net limit. And I remember halfway through, like 2/3 of the way through the match, say, getting another net, putting another net in, putting 3 fish in it, and like going, well, that's my, if I can't put another fish in there, because it was like, well, there's
15, 18 pound a piece.
Yeah, there's like nearly £50 in that net. If I catch another one the same size, I can't put it in that net. It was just unreal. The size of the fish was just unreal. So I drew about peg 14, I'm going to say. Jamie Hawkins is to my left. I always remember Jamie Hawkins being on my left. We've both started on method feeder, firing some 8 mils over the top. But again, I'm looking at this sort of like this 5 meter line. I'm thinking this is me. This 5 meter line is me. Yeah, it was me. And I'll tell you what I did. To kick it off, I went 2 big potfuls of hemp, like bosh, 2 big potfuls of hemp. When I decided I wanted to go on it. So I've caught an odd fish on method feeder, and me and Hawkins were probably like there or thereabouts, close to each other. I think I've just nipped ahead of him because a couple of better fish. And I've dumped in these 2 big potfuls of hemp on this short line. That was going to be my base. And every time, first drop in, I've like clunk, got one, double meat. Proper hippos as well, like massive fish. Remember the old using the old Mick Wilkinson diamond, cane tip, long fibre glass stem, like proper float. It's about 7 foot deep, 6.5, 7 foot deep when I'm fishing. So you sort of like lay it in nice and slow. I had hardly a liner that day, and Will Raisin was commentating because it was Old Ghost sponsored event. And Will was with Old Ghost at the time, a bait company. So Will was like commentating. I remember him watching me. Solid where, Rob. It's just solid there. And I felt at the time I'd got the feeding like absolutely bang on. So I'd hook a fish, and this is a point that I like to. This is something that I used to do a lot when it was like big fish with a target. Is I didn't used to throw. I used to cup my bait and just like sneak it into the peg just to set that trap. So because you're not looking for like fish after fish after fish. You're just trying to get into a nice, steady rhythm.
That's right, yeah.
I only want 1 or maybe 2 fish in the peg at any one time. And the trouble is when you start throwing bait is you scatter the bait. Sometimes you attract too many fish, if that's possible.
Come up in the water.
They come up in the water. And what I wanted to do is just nail a fish, set that trap, lure my hook bait, bang on that trap, get my bite. And I tell you what, this day, it was like, it worked absolutely unreal. So I was literally potting in. Bear in mind, it's the middle of summer. You're fishing for like £15 fish, like 8 or 10 cubes of meat, maybe a pinch of hemp, pot it in, and then like lower my rig on top, like as slow as you can. So it take a little bit of time compared to throwing it and all that game.
Didn't matter though, did it? Because they were huge.
Oh, Lee, every time you drop it in, you'd sit there, you'd maybe wait 30 seconds or a minute, float go bonk, dunk. Everything was like so clean, and like I remember it being so clean and so. And I didn't lose a fish. I didn't foul hooking. It was just like one of them dream days. I was second in the match. I'm sure the guy who spoke about who's next to me at Campbell, Mick Bull. No, it wasn't Andy Powell this time. It was Mick Bull. He was on Match Lake. He won the match. But again,
what have we got a weight here, or do we know what weight we've had?
I've had £200 again. I'm going to have a look. I've got it all down here.
200. I remember you. I remember this period now. It's all coming back.
95 kilos. I was actually third in the match. 95 kilos. So you're talking £200.
Yeah. Sorry, £230.
Yeah.
Right. So this is 4 points now. 2 wins.
4 points, and obviously I'm thinking, I'm quite. I was like 3 points ahead of.
I think so. I bet you're winning now.
Yeah, because obviously people fall off the wayside now.
Because Rob, it's the UK champs. So
everyone's taking points off everyone.
Yeah,
there's no whipping boys.
Rob, I went into Larford the year before with 2 wins, and then I came 7th in my section in a corner of the match late.
Yeah, because there's no mistakes. No one's making a mistake.
It was a really bad day. I had like 10 kilos. It was so poor. And there were so many brilliant anglers that catching odd fish in better bits, and I just couldn't do anything. And then I came 2nd in my section in the last match, and I had to rue this knockout rubbish day. So at this point for you, you must be thinking it's Barston, I'm assuming, for the final round.
Barston's the last round. And it's one of the venues that at the time I wasn't visiting it all the time, but I'd been there enough. And it's just like there is now, there was an explosion of skimmers. Whether Nigel had stocked them at the time, I can't remember, or whether there was just an explosion. They'd had a really good year spawning, but it was like an explosion. I remember
this was like the 2nd burst of skimmers that came into.
Yeah, but they weren't tiny. They were like 8 ounce. They weren't tiny. And they're the fish that are like £2 now that you catch. I'm sure Nigel stocked them in there. Whether he did or not, I'm not too sure.
No, I think he did. I think I recall him stocking them in there. Yeah.
So we're going there. Jason Lebosca, I think, is 3 points behind me, and he's won the UK Champs in the past. Jason's like good angler.
Only a couple of years before, I'd have said.
He's a good angler. He knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
And I thought, I've got to go and have a couple of practice sessions, and that's not really like me. I just like to rock up a lot of the time.
You've got to. You're not going to be in this chance again.
No. So I thought, I'll go and have a practice session. Just try a few different things, because obviously there's these skimmers there. That's like the safe way for me to build a weight, and all I've got to do,
potentially come top half for definite.
If I come 3rd in the section, I can't be beat, right? So I'm thinking, right, I need a method that's going to get me 3rd in the section
for definite.
And as it was, I've gone and practiced. I've tried a few different things. I've tried fishing little balls of paste, thinking if I can just maybe increase the stamp a little bit and catch slightly bigger skimmers, that's going to give me a benefit. And that was all right. I tried meat, because obviously, again, I want to increase the stamp. I always feel that meat's good for increasing the stamp of fish. But as it was, I settled on softened pellets. So hard pellets softened, and fishing either a small banded pellet or an expander on the hook, and catapulting baiting. So catapulting baiting.
Like 11 meters? Or?
Yeah, exactly. 11 meters. I didn't go too far. I just wanted to.
You didn't want to, did you?
No.
Yeah, I get it. Right. Now, are you thinking like, this is going to be me on 90% of pegs?
Yes, that was what I was thinking. Now, the massive twist is that Jason Lebosque, who's chasing me, I drew next to Jason on the day. So I drew next to Jason on the day. So this is like,
what pegs we draw?
And obviously Rob Hughes is covering it. I think it was for Sky at the time. It might have been for BT, but I think it might have been for Sky at the time.
I'm sure it was
and
Sky.
It was billed as like, this is the match. This is the battle. Yeah. Yeah. And obviously Jason is fishing. He was like real clued up on these skimmers, and I was thinking,
hang on, just he's like previous UK champ, ranked versus ranked number one.
Yeah. It was like the battle was like, it was really ramped up. It was fantastic. So it's all like coming down to this point, and I'm thinking, I just need to finish 3 points ahead of Jason. That's all I've got to do. 3 points. Got to remember, I think Andy Power is in my section as well, further down. The Nemesis. He's close. I think he's 1 point behind Jason. So like, this is the section.
You can't 5th thinking you've done it because Power could win. No,
well, exactly. So he could sneak in at the last minute.
What are the pegs? Tell me the pegs. I need to know the pegs.
Just past the island, I'm going to say 30, 40 and 38. So terrible pegs. Jason's got the point of the island to chuck to on his left-hand side.
He'd have been on 38 then, yeah.
And I'm on 40.
Yeah.
So like pants pegs. But I've got this skimmer tactic, and the lake was like full of these skimmers, and I've got this skimmer tactic.
Not a bad area for that tactic.
No, it was good. So, sitting in the water. I remember the weekend after, there was a Super Cup, Angling Time Super Cup clubman match. So a lot of people walking around watching this match, because obviously they've got a match of the weekend. They're hopefully trying to glean a bit of info.
Well,
So a lot of people walking around. And I've started on a method feed like you do at Barston. I've had like one F1. They weren't big fish at the time. They were like £1.5 fish. You know, fair enough. Jason's had like similar sort of start. He's had a carp though. Like as I'm fishing for skimmers, he's had a carp, or he might have had a carp on his. I think he had a carp on his pole. That was the like, oh no, you've had a carp. But I've started fishing for skimmers, and it's all right. It's like
40 minutes in, something like that.
Yeah, that's it. 30 minutes. I was so keen to get on it, Lee, because I thought I've just got to get on this and get my head down. And I've had like a real steady day, and I've ended up putting a section on every now and again. Joe Crass was walking the bank for match fishing, and he was like, "You're doing all right, mate. You're doing all right. You just got to keep doing what you're doing." He says, "Close." And Jason was fishing for skimmers now. Totally different style. He's fishing.
Can I point out something at this point, right? I would say you're on the last match. This is actually a dream scenario, right? Because you're on the last match, and at least 3/4 of the field are trying to frame.
Yeah, they're trying to win the match for the grand.
These little skimmers don't even enter their mind, right? So you're either going to all get beat by a load of people bagging up the carp, but you're not in a great section for that. So actually, as it happens,
well, you got to remember around the corner in the 50s. That's where.
Right. You're right. You might get 1 or 2 pegs, but I would have said you're sitting there surely thinking, if I get this right, I've got a chance here.
I am, but then. I mean, look, I was pretty confident at the time because obviously I've got Jason. I keep my eye on Jason.
Yeah.
What I didn't expect is because Jason was fishing a totally different style to me. Was I was fishing sort of like softened pellets, catapulting bait, laying my rig in, coming back. I was catching smaller fish. I was catching smaller fish. Yeah.
You would, yeah.
Jason was fishing like really sloppy ground bait, like ground up pellets, sloppy, like almost feeding a ball of paste and dropping an expander through the middle of it. And his fish were definitely bigger than mine, definitely. Okay. And he was only fishing like 7 meters out, like filling his pot, shipping out, plopping that ball in, expanded through the middle of it, catching a fish, like really simple, like short way of fishing. And I remember I had to follow my fish out because they were backing off. And it just was like, oh, this is just, I'm falling behind here. I'm falling behind. And then the carp that I'm talking about, like, 10 minutes from the end, Jason's had this carp. I remember him catching this carp, and it was like dark. I'm sure it was a common, but I remember it being like dark chestnut coloured. And I'm like, oh, that's he's beat me. So it was all about
how much did he beat you
by how much, right? So it was all about
who's in between.
Yeah, it was all about what had happened around the corner. As it's coming back, all these different weights coming back, thinking, oh, this is going to be close. This is going to be close.
And what are you thinking in your mind? What sort of weight are you thinking in your mind?
I'm sure I was thinking I've got like, I'm going to have a look here. 31 kilo. Right.
That's what you weighed.
Yeah, 31 kilos. So like,
that's a busy day, that.
65 pound. So the right up here, it was Wootton's to lose, and being pegged next door to Le Bosque meant that both anglers would be very aware of each other's results. Silvers were the target on 4 mil pellets, and both anglers were almost fish for fish in the early stage, with skimmers being the target. Again, Pete Bailey had eyes on the section, and throughout the match, fished a blinder pellet waggler. He was in the 50s.
Yeah, it's a brilliant pellet waggler area.
To record 40 kilos for the win.
Right.
40 kilos, 300 he had.
Yeah.
Wootton recorded he's playing me down a bit here, just 31 kilos. So if Jace Le Bosque could beat the 40 kilos of Bailey, it would be enough to win the title.
Right.
It was close to the death, but it was not quite close enough. That was as Jason Le Bosque fish went round to 38 kilos. So he's beat me on the day.
Oh my life.
He's beat me on the day, but he needed another 2 more kilos and he'd have been UK champion. But as it was, because I'd got the weight advantage, remember I've had a day at Larford.
Hang on, have you tied on weight with him then?
Tied on weight with Jason, but obviously because I'd got Larford, I'd got Viaduct, Lindholme, all 3 big weights. It was like enough to like
tied on points with him and then won on weight.
Then beat him on weight, yeah, beat him on weight. But obviously you got to remember that's all in my head. So I knew the cushion that I'd got because like before the match, you knew the cushion you'd got because you look at it and think, well, he's not going to beat me on weight. So it gives you an extra point, if you know what I mean. It gives you an extra sort of like, it gives you a bit of leeway, a bit of a buffer.
Yeah,
so
of course it does.
Obviously UK champ. everyone, because obviously there's quite a few people there as well from the because they're fishing the club match the weekend, the club champs. The scales was like there's proper group around the scales, proper like looking at Jason's weight, and it was brilliant to win because, as we've said all the way through, the standard of angler, it was the standard of angler that that made it. There's a side note, just reading there, Paul Holland won the match from on fishing pellet waggler and bomb and all that sort of thing. So it just tells you like the standard of anglers that fishing.
Oh, it's brilliant, mate. It was absolutely brilliant. Like I said, I've only fished 2 or 3 ever, but I always remember thinking how amazing they were, in terms of the quality of angler. Brilliant.
Well, it was I always think that it was one of the, you get like in golf, you get like the titles.
It's the majors. It's
the majors. Yeah, it's one of the majors. I remember talking about Simon Fryback, because I think, I'm not so sure Simon Fry won it, but we'll talk about the Drennan. And at the time, it says, to me, that's like, it's one of the majors because you're fishing against the cream of anglers.
I remember that little period. It's before Match This and that. Just before Match This was a little bit before that, but there was a period where it was like Fisho, Park Dean, Drennan Knockout, and the UK champs. Yeah. For me, they were the 4 biggest events in the country.
They were.
And then obviously, with the Drennan Knockout going and Match This coming onto the scene, the money talks. So obviously it changes how they. And I would say, Rob, that, and this is no disrespect to anyone in the UK champs now, I don't perceive it as a major anymore because it sort of, I felt it kind of lost its way a little bit. Like a lot of these things, right? If they're not fresh and there's other challenges in competitions, then it changes it a little bit. So like we're talking back then about competitions. I mean, one of them doesn't even exist anymore in the Drennan Knockout. And, there is Golden Reel.
And you've got to remember as well that in them sort of matches, I feel like the opinion forming anglers, the guys that are on social media that people are looking to, they sort of create the competition. They make the competition. So if they move on and put their focus somewhere else, then the competition loses a little bit of prestige as well, and it just drops off a little bit. Having said that, if I get time this year, I'll have a look at the dates for UK champs, because if I get time this year, I've got half fancy it.
Why not? Listen, why not? It's still an amazing competition to win. My point is that there is now 10.
There is. It's been diluted a little bit, which is fantastic for anglers, isn't it? It's fantastic.
Brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant. Do you know what I mean? Like, you can't choose anymore. It's just there's so many. So there's almost like majors in different areas now. It's brilliant. So we're blessed in that respect. But yeah, I mean, I actually had a go. Was it not last year? Year before.
Yeah, year before.
Tried to go because I thought, well, I've got some free time. I qualified for Feeder King first time up, so I thought, I'll go and have a go at UK champs. There's no reason why not. I did woefully, but there's no reason why not. You have to. Sometimes you have to go, and if you're not in, you can't win.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. I mean, obviously, we say it's got to be about being consistent over 4 rounds, but you can't afford a bad round. You just can't afford a bad one.
Well, I've told you, I've given you my example there, and I also had the same. My first ever UK champs was the same. Won my section in the first round, fished a terrible match at Lindholme and came 8th. And then I came 2 top 2s in the last 2. And I'll never forget. And I've had that twice in the UK champs where I finished like 5th and 7th, where one result has cost me being able to win it. But the trouble is the anglers are so good. And that's why you should, it's a proper glory day, mate. And you should be really proud of it because, not a lot of people get their chance to win it. And like I said to you before, I do feel that bracket of time, that 10-year period in there, it really, really was a major to win. So brilliant recollection of the glory day.
Right, so your turn next. We'll have a think about what because there's plenty that we can talk about. So your turn next. Next week, we'll have another glory day for everyone, will we?
Well, at some point in the next couple of weeks, we'll definitely get one on. Yeah, definitely.
Super. All right. I'll see you later, mate.
See you, mate.